what's up guys? Joker here, and welcome to my review for the Nvidia GTX 980 Ti. That's right, you guys have been waiting for it. The card was announced pretty much like earlier this week, but it was started rumored last week. In case you guys missed it, I already did an overview on this card, which I will put a link to right here in case you missed that, in case you want to go back and take a look at that, where I did some sexy B-roll footage and went over some of the specs of the card, specifically in comparison with the Titan X, because they are so similar, and that's really one of the sticking points with the 980 Ti's, and it's kind of almost like an odd release for Nvidia. It almost feels in my mind like they're almost shooting themselves in the foot a little bit by putting this card out at $650, where it's basically running, you know, within like 2 to 3% in terms of performance with the Titan X, which is priced at $1,000, and this card is $650, so $350 difference there. And basically what you're paying for is the extra 6 gigabytes of video memory. Sure, the Titan X has a little bit more CUDA core, by 256 more CUDA cores, a little bit more texture units and things like that. But, you know, for the most part, these cards in gaming terms, they're going to perform pretty much neck and neck in everything. In some cases, I've actually seen the 980 Ti pull ahead, but it was really by like negligible performance numbers. And that was on review sites that I was reading and videos that I've watched, where I did see the 980 Ti pull ahead a couple of times by like a frame or so. But, you know, that's negligible performance. Anything could have happened. You could have gotten an alert in the background for all we know. At that exact moment that caused the frames to just, you know, drop for a second on the Titan X, so the 980 Ti won. But for the most part, you know, the Titan X is going to win. It is the more powerful single GPU. It is the most powerful single GPU on the market today for single GPUs, without a doubt. So if, you know, you're looking at doing like extreme 4K gaming, like triple 4K surround monitors, then I'm sure the Titan X is going to be for you. Actually, multiple Titan X's is probably going to be for you, because that's really the only people I can actually see using that card, because the 980 Ti, even with its 6 gigabytes of video memory, is more than enough to power through all of today's latest games, you know, at 4K without going over that 6 gigabyte video memory limit. There might be like one exception, like Shadow of Mordor, where that game might go over 6 gigabytes of video memory. But every other game out there, video memory is not going to be an issue. Witcher 3 was extremely well optimized for video memory, so that's not going to be an issue. GTA 5 also is not going to be using more than 6 gigabytes of video memory, so these are the latest, most demanding titles that we have, and they're not even using close to 6 gigabytes of video memory, even on 4K. So, you know, you really don't need to go out there and buy a Titan X at $1,000 if you're looking to run just a single 4K monitor. My advice would definitely be to do two 980 Ti's and SLI, and we'll get to those numbers actually when I do my 980 SLI review in tomorrow or the next day, because my order actually got delayed a little bit, so I'm not going to have my 980 Ti until tomorrow, the second one that is. I already got the first one, obviously, and that's what we're going to be here to talk about today. So in terms of sheer performance of the 980 Ti, it pretty much performed exactly as I expected, and even a little bit better in some circumstances. The best way that I could really sum up the performance of the 980 Ti is that it has basically, I've recently transitioned from 1080p to 1440, and obviously when I made that transition, even though I had two 980s, you know, I noticed a significant performance hit, and where my performance was coming down to around like, you know, kind of like average performance, like 60 to 80 frames in a lot of games. Being like, I am a 144 Hz gamer, have been for like 2 years now, and now that I've got the new Acer monitor, 144 Hz G-Sync, 1440p and all that stuff, obviously I want to be getting, you know, more than just 60 frames when I'm playing a game. So, you know, and things like Witcher 3 with Hairworks and stuff like that were definitely real killers. Like the two 980s at 1440 was just barely holding over 60 frames on that game at 1440p with Hairworks turned on. But with this 980 Ti, you know, I'm running well over 60 frames with Hairworks off, and just about at 60 frames with Hairworks on. But, you know, once I have my second 980 Ti, I'm sure those frames are going to soar, and I'm probably going to be seeing in the, you know, 70 to 80, maybe even 90 frames with two cards. But we'll just have to wait for the 980 Ti to review to find that out. But what I'm trying to get at here is going from 1080 to 1440 and now having the 980 Ti, I really feel like I've basically taken the performance that I used to have at 1080p, and now I've recaptured that performance at 1440. That's basically what it feels like, because I can go on Witcher 3 and I could turn Hairworks off at 1440 and I will stay at a solid 60-70 frames, no problem whatsoever, which is what I had to do to play on a single 980, because in case you didn't know, there's been some problems streaming The Witcher 3 in SLI using OBS. At least I've had the problem. I don't know if anyone else has, but when I was streaming it, I had to play on a single card, and in order to stay up above 60 frames on a single 980, I had to turn off Hairworks. So, you know, with 1440 now, I feel like it's basically the exact same performance, but at a higher resolution. So I can now get that 60 frames with just turning off Hairworks, you know, at 1440 with a single 980 Ti. But once I get the second card, that's not going to be an issue, and I'll be able to crank up the Hairworks as much as I want at 1440p, because it is such a, you know, it's a much more demanding resolution than 1080p. So it was really no shock to me that it didn't stay over 60 frames all the time with Hairworks on. It did sometimes, but for the most part, it was running, you know, a little bit below 60. So just, you know, want to be completely honest about that and get that out there for you guys. In terms of cooling, the card is running pretty much identical to what, you know, I had experienced with my 980. Running idle, I'm around 35 to 40 degrees right now since it is a single GPU, but I do expect that number to go up when I get the second card, obviously, with SLI. Heat's going to go up inside my case, no questions asked. So, you know, but temperatures are what I expect for a reference card, and reference is really what's better for me, for my needs, because I do have such a closed case in the Define R5. It's a very sealed up case. So I need to have that extra exhaust to basically pull the hot air out the back, especially when I'm rendering videos. Actually, when I was rendering videos, when I had my aftermarket 780s, my MSI 780s, my temperature on my CPU would go up to 95 degrees, almost close to 100. And one time I did blue screen just out of pure my computer trying to protect me from overheating. So, you know, having reference cards for me specifically is just a necessity so that I can pull that extra hot air out of the system when I am rendering videos. As a result of that, my GPUs do run a little bit warmer, but the rest of the system runs quieter and cooler. And if you're not familiar with, you know, maybe why that is, Linus actually has a terrific video on that, which will link down in the description below, because you know, after posting that I got the 980 Ti reference a lot on forums and stuff, so many people are like, why did you get reference? Why did you get reference? And, you know, it's like, I just don't think a lot of people understand that there's benefits to having a reference card. Not only that, but I also think that the reference cards look a hell of a lot nicer. I'm not a fan really of any of the aftermarket cards, with the exception of maybe the EVGA ACX cooler, the all black cooler. I think that looks pretty nice. But besides that, also is the build quality. You know, with these cards, they're made of aluminum. They're really, really solid. When you look at all the aftermarket coolers, they're like all plastic. I like having a nice solid card that I know is going to be a rock solid performer, and it's also helping me exhaust that hot air out of the case. So couldn't be more pleased with the temperatures. The noise levels aren't that bad either, even though reference gets a bad rap. Sure, if I crank my fans up to 100%, I'm going to hear it. But you know what? So would you on an aftermarket card. Even if the most quiet aftermarket card out there, if you put it up to 100%, you're still going to hear the thing. So, you know, I have a custom fan curve set up that keeps my cards running as cool as I can, under 80 degrees when in SLI, and, you know, it's a manageable noise level for me, especially since I do have the Define R5, which is an amazing silent case. You know, not completely silent, obviously, but it does it the best that it can, and it's more than adequate for my needs. So it does keep quiet, it keeps cool, and I'm really, really happy with the temperature performance on the 980 Ti. I actually did expect it to be a little bit warmer, but, you know, it ran pretty much around the same exact temps as my 980. Now let's go ahead and talk just a little bit about overclocking on the 980 Ti. I wasn't sure, you know, how well it was going to overclock, but within maybe 5 minutes of having the graphics card in my system, that was pretty much what I did. I got the card in the system, I ran like one benchmark, and then I was like, okay, let's overclock, and I just cranked it up. I put it up like 200 on the core, 200 on the memory. I was like, I should be able to handle this no problem, and, you know, I wasn't just disappointed. It ran absolutely fine. With that overclock. Since then, I've gone ahead and tweaked it up a little bit, and I think I still have a little bit more tweaking to go, a little bit more fine-tuning to find the perfect sweet spot, as I haven't messed with voltages or power limits yet at all. But right now, I'm running at plus 250 on the core and plus 250 on the memory, and I'm sure I could push that memory a little bit higher, but you know, boosting the memory overclock really doesn't increase frame rate performance all that much, so I've never been really been crazy about trying to get it up to like 8 gigahertz, but I'm going to fine-tune my overclocks a little bit more. But I still saw, you know, with the overclock that I got on there now, the 250 with no touch, I didn't touch the voltage or the power limit at all, just like I said, and this was on a 70% ASIC quality. I did run GPU-Z's ASIC quality test, and I scored a 70% with this card, which is pretty admirable. It's about on par with my better of my previous 980s. One of the worser of the 980s had like a 65% ASIC quality, so 70% was pretty good. I was able to get a good overclock, and then with the boost as well kicking in. This card does have a 1075 boost, but I noticed it boosting more than just 75. When I had my overclock on and everything, I noticed sometimes the card was boosting up to around 1440 in certain benchmarks when it was under full 100% load. So the boost was definitely kicking in because the card was running cool enough thanks to GPU Boost 2.0. And, you know, it really just, the overclock was just an absolute dream and just a piece of cake. I just set it and forget it. I just put the numbers up to, you know, what I thought would be a respectable number, and I haven't experienced a single crash so far. And I'm going to continue to overclock and see how far I can push it when I do get the second 980, then I'll have a better idea of how much I could really push the two cards together, because the overclocking is definitely going to change once I get to the second card and I see what the ASIC quality is like on that one. But, you know, saw a significant increase across all my games, which you'll be seeing here in a moment when we look at the benchmark scores for everything. So now we're going to go ahead and actually move right along into that. You know, as I've done in the past for my videos, I do what I like to call the rockin' benchmarks. So now we're going to go ahead and do that and roll the benchmark music. Alright guys, so as you could see, there's some pretty impressive benchmarks from the Nvidia GTX 980 Ti, and staying consistent, you know, with what I've seen across a lot of websites, you know, being about, you know, 20 to 25% faster than the GTX 980. Does everything I absolutely wanted it to and expected it to, and it's just icing on the cake that it does have that 6 gigabytes of video memory, and I really feel future-proof now, sort of having that there. With the 4 gigabytes, I sort of felt like I was like right on the edge. Like as soon as like, you know, Unreal Engine 4 games started coming out, I was like, oh man, as soon as those games start coming out with like crazy VRAM requirements, I'm going to just need to upgrade again. And I'm just happy that I have the 980 Ti's now, because I do feel like I'm set for like a good year and a half now, whereas with the 980s, I wasn't really too sure about it. But as you can see by those frame rate numbers there, I think I'm going to be doing pretty well, especially when I do put in the second card. So, you know, make sure you subscribe for that, because I am going to have the 980 SLI video coming out tomorrow or the next day, and I really can't wait to slap that in there and really see what that can do in comparison with this. Now, I know I did say previously that I was going to try to include some 780 numbers, but what the thing was is I didn't have enough 780 numbers for the current games because I don't have my 780s anymore, so I couldn't retest them. So a lot of them were from older benchmarks and older drivers. But what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to link you down to my private spreadsheet in the description box below. This has all of my benchmark numbers going back for like a few years So if you are curious to see what the 780 numbers look like stacked up against these numbers here today, even though they are on different drivers and different systems, then, you know, that's up to you. But I just didn't want to include them in this video for the purpose of these benchmarks because I didn't really feel like it would, I didn't really feel like it was an honest comparison because it's not in the same system. It wasn't the same processor. It's not the same latest drivers. And also I didn't have GTA 5 back then. I didn't have The Witcher 3 back then, so I couldn't benchmark those things. And I didn't want to include it in the graphs and have missing spaces, really. So, but besides that, the 980 Ti, I'm just over the moon, ecstatic with this card. Absolutely love it. Can't recommend it enough. I really do think it is the perfect sweet spot right now. It just, you know, kicks everything's ass out there. I think it even kicks the Titan X's ass because I don't think unless you're running triple 4K monitors, I think there's no reason to buy a Titan X. I see no reason to buy that card whatsoever unless you're doing like CUDA core development or some crazy thing like that. If you're just a gamer and if you're buying a Titan X, you know, just for a single 4K monitor, I think you're going to be extremely disappointed because, you know, some games you're not even going to be able to get 60 frames with a single Titan X, and the same thing with, you know, a 980 Ti with a single card. You're really, if you're looking to do 4K gaming, SLI is pretty much mandatory still at this point with a Titan X or with a 980 Ti if you're looking to play the latest games at Ultra, that is. That's as at Ultra. Because when I say Ultra in my benchmarks, I actually mean Ultra. I don't mean Ultra with, like, you know, 2 times MSAA or Ultra, you know, Witcher 3 with Hairworks off. I mean Ultra. When I say Ultra, I mean Ultra. Everything turned up literally to the max because that's how I play my games. And for consistency with you guys, when you're going to, you know, go out and potentially put $650 on this card and slap it in your system, and then you go ahead and turn it up to Ultra, and you're like, hey, Joker, why isn't it running the same as Ultra as yours? And I'll be like, oh, well, because I turned down shadows and anti-aliasing. You know, like, what is the point of that? So many reviewers out there, you know, have up reviews for these cards, but then they drop down certain settings. I'm like, just run it at Ultra. That's the point of benchmarking. The point of benchmarking is to see what a graphics card can do in the most, you know, in the most serious scenarios, the most ridiculous scenario you could possibly put it in, the most powerful, the most latest and greatest games that are pushing the boundaries of graphics and using the graphics cards that are pushing the boundaries of GPU power. That's the whole point of benchmarking. That's what I love about benchmarking and graphics cards. That's why I'm so enthusiastic about this. So I hope you guys do appreciate that. I hope you guys did enjoy the video. If there wasn't any question, you guys had any questions that I didn't answer in this video, I still have the 980 SLI video coming up in the future. So please feel free to put those questions down below, and I'll try to answer you in the comments or maybe include it in that SLI video. But when I do get that SLI video, it's going to be compared against my 980 SLI numbers that I do have for all of these games. So not to be worried, there's nothing going to be missed there, like the 780s that I unfortunately did have to leave out for this review. But do check down in the description below because I'm going to put my private spreadsheets down there. I have a couple of them that have all my benchmarks going from 770s to 780s to 980s and now to the 980 Ti. So if you're looking in that price range, if you're thinking about upgrading from like 770s SLI or 780 SLI or a single 780, I've got all of those numbers in those spreadsheets. So feel free to go have a look at those numbers and maybe you can help you with a purchasing decision, I hope. If not, feel free to ask me a question down in the comments below and I'll try to get back to as many of you as possible. If you guys did enjoy this video, please stick a thumb up on it below because it helps me out a ton. And, you know, follow me on Facebook and Twitter at JokerSlunt so you guys can get earlier information about this stuff, as I've been posting loads of information about the 980 Ti and teasing people with awesome pictures as I got it. So make sure you're following over on the Twitter page at least, because that's really the easiest place to get access to me. I talk to everyone on Twitter. Anyone that messages me on Twitter or tweets to me, I usually respond, you know, within minutes because I always have my phone at my side. So if you ever need to get a hold of me, Twitter's the place to do it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, like I said, I'll catch you slunts next time. Ta-ra.